Hello from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, an urgent call for more financial literacy for Kentuckians. Dale Morgan from Foundation 47 will be joining us to talk about your finances and how to create a better path forward. But first, the man who oversees Kentucky's colleges and universities is here, and he comes in at a time when the legislature is considering cuts to higher education. Dr. Aaron Thompson speaks all over the country about the difference education has made in his life. As president of the Council on Postsecondary Education, he's been in Frankfort a lot lately, and we're glad that he could be with us today. Welcome. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Bill, for the invitation.
Let's start with a couple of bright notes. Kentucky college enrollment is growing, outpacing the national trends as we understand it, and most Kentucky undergrads are getting their diploma debt-free.
Absolutely. And by the way, since COVID, Kentucky's been the fastest growing state in enrollment. So we're proud of that. We bounced back faster than anyone else. 71% of all of our public universities and college students are graduating now with no debt. And of those that have debt, we've reduced that amount by 34% in the last 5 years. I mean, really a bright spot. And we've kept tuition the lowest in history in the last 7 years. So we're very proud that that's a metric that we can really say that we're putting more people into the workforce, into the economy, where they can actually make a living wage from the beginning without having debt and be able to actually keep going and build a family like many of our young folk want to do now.
Has to be encouraging to those considering going to college, right?
Absolutely. When you think about the opportunity of getting a credential that matters, which probably is another show, we've also looked at the quality of credentials we're using, making sure we don't even count it, Bill, unless they can make a living wage with that credential they're getting. So getting more people interested in coming back to college, them knowing that they'll have a really good opportunity to have little or no debt once they finish is in fact good for Kentucky.
With these encouraging numbers, the state budget is described right now as a work in progress, but as it stands, it would cut colleges and universities. The president of UK communicated to his campus that it would have a significant impact. EKU's president was with us recently and said there would be job losses if the cuts go through as they are. What are your thoughts and concerns?
Well, I have several thoughts and I have a lot of concerns, no doubt about it. First of all, I want to thank the General Assembly for starting to invest in us right after COVID. But we've given them that return on investment. As a matter of fact, the latest economic results show that for every dollar they put in, they got $22 back. We went through about 9+ years of cuts before then. We got skinny on our campuses. We had to cut. We got down to the nuts and bolts, right? So, but since then, we've been able, when they start reinvesting, we start putting exactly what they ask us to put on the table. These cuts will set us back. As a matter of fact, not getting new investment will keep us from moving forward. So our argument is that we've shown you that we can produce, keep investing in us. Surely the cuts isn't the way you want to go while we're actually accelerating. And we argue that we're the most direct line to a good economy. So the highly educated workforce is what they need.
What's driving the proposal for cuts, do you think, at a time when, there are other areas within the state budget protected from cuts and, as you say, if you invest $1 and get $22 back, it would seem that that's a good investment.
It's an excellent investment. Now, we don't know exactly what's driving the cuts. We haven't been given that explanation. We know that they have to cover a lot of items. We know they have to put a little more money in Medicaid. They're looking at a variety of other items that is going to cost more. But our argument is that you will end up putting more money in prisons. You'll put much more money in Medicaid. And the best way to stop from doing that is to invest in higher education. That keeps the people out of prison, out of jails, and off Medicaid. So I haven't been given a great explanation as to why. Now, once again, they've been very open on the House and Senate side to listen to our arguments. And I'm over there every day, and we're making those arguments. So our hope is that by the time the session is over, those cuts will get back to zero, but they would be able to even invest some, like what we asked for and our budget asked, into making sure we keep going in the direction we've been going.
Are you optimistic about that at this point? It's late in the session.
Yeah.
The House has done its work. This is now in the hands of the Senate.
You know, Bill, I'm going to be optimistic until the conference session is over. I mean, that's the way I'm going to have to approach it. I have no choice. I mean, the idea that and the interesting thing, we have data. We have real live ways of showing that it has been a return on investment. So I'm going to stay optimistic, and I'm going to keep arguing for higher education.
A recent report indicates a college degree in Kentucky, a person with that, earns on average $1.2 million more per year than those without, right?
Absolutely. Interesting enough about that, because you hear these national data all the time talking about that, but in Kentucky we have the best data system in the country. We can count everything. So we follow high school students that graduate 1 year, 8 years later, we can measure exactly where they're at. If they had a high school diploma, if they had some college but no degree, or if they had an associate degree, or a 4-year degree, or a graduate degree, we actually can measure that, and in fact that is the case. If you get a college degree, you're going to make $1.4 million more over the lifetime than with a high school diploma.
As the public's out there trying to figure this all out, they do see investments in terms of physical buildings and structures and so on going up on campuses, and they must think that is an investment of some kind, right? It's happening. We know it at Moorhead, certainly at UK and other campuses.
Well, they have. In General Assembly over the last several biennia has invested heavily in asset preservation, as an example, and in new buildings, and we needed it. Many of our campuses were very old, falling down, and it's the state's property. They should invest, so that is an investment. So we are by no means saying that we need more of that also, but in many cases when we're talking about the 4% cut the first year and 3% the second year, ended up being about 7% in aggregate. In aggregate, some campuses different. I mean, those are general fund dollars, what ends up being, right? Those are dollars that directly has to come from someplace else, and I can't replace that with tuition rate. I just can't. And so it's very problematic when we think about it along those lines. Yes, we do need our capital equipments. We do need our buildings. We do need those items that doesn't come directly from what students pay for, but we do need those dollars, because a dollar in from the state is a dollar that has far more value than that tuition dollar in my mind.
Kentucky also has this big goal, 60 by 30, and we're making progress on that, right?
Significantly. We're putting more degrees out there. We're putting more workforce credentials out there, and we are less than 5% left toward that 60% attainment. So we are very happy with where we're at. You know, Bill, my goal was one of these days I would retire once we get close to that 60%. We're getting close. So we're in fact doing that. And by the way, let me be clear. We don't count those, once again, unless they can make that living wage here in Kentucky. And so we're very proud of the way we've been able to achieve that.
Several of our institutions have been approved for new missions. We have been watching the push at EKU for the College of Osteopathic Medicine. The legislature also grappling with the fact that Kentucky has a shortage of primary care physicians, and so included EKU with UK and U of L in an effort to try to work on that shortage.
Well, absolutely, and of course that comes down to my department, my shop, my agency to approve or not approve them moving forward. I've been very happy to actually look at we've been looking at this for 3 years, by the way, and I think we're very close to approving that, and we'll be very happy to have a new DO school here in Kentucky. I just approved a new vet school at Murray to move forward.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. The veterinary school will be the first in Kentucky, right?
It will be the first in Kentucky. It's a distributive model, not a pure clinical model, but it will be the first in Kentucky. And of course, they have to go through accreditation. So, you know, in 5 or 6 years, we'll see vets been able to come out of Murray, Kentucky.
Is there anything additional that Murray State or that EKU need to do to get across the finish line and get on with their program?
Yes. Well, we had to evaluate several items. Senate Bill 77 last year put it back in the hands of CPE. And then we had to see if they were in the top 80% in student success of the SRB regions, top 75 nationally. Both of them achieved that. Whether or not they had enough money in reserve to start the program, they do in most cases. EKU has to ask for about $42 million to put in escrow because it's required there for accreditation, AMA accreditation. Murray didn't have to, they had those dollars. And we had to make sure that all of the other items at CPE, and we've taken through the ringer, no doubt, that was in place, that it doesn't hurt the undergraduate mission, which that's what we're pushing toward, is 60 to 30. So we had to make sure all those things were in place, and proud to say that those institutions did what they needed to do, and we feel very good about moving forward.
How are our institutions of higher learning dealing with artificial intelligence, AI? It's coming, it's on campus already, but we know the impacts, the social impacts are just going to be huge. We just can't all wrap our hands around it at this point.
You know, I feel like I spend, other than being in Frankfurt, I spend the other half of my life trying to figure out AI. Every 3 weeks it changes somewhat. We're grappling with it as well as any other state. To give you an example, I was at a robotics competition this week, Gladiator League, and I'm seeing these young people in high school doing what they need to do, and they're incorporating AI into that process. We know it's going to be incorporated even more. So more than just trying to say, let's do whatever we can where they can't cheat on a like plagiarism or use ChatGPT to write their papers. We'll do that too. But how can we proactively use AI to go into the next generation? If we don't do that, we will lose jobs. And so our job is to be on the forefront of thinking, working with employers to know how they're going to use AI and how we can incorporate that in our programs, how we can incorporate it in our internships and all those other items. So that's what we're doing now. We are looking at what's coming down the road as much as we can predict with AI, right? And then how we can prepare our students to be a part of that economy that AI is obviously already a big part of and will be even more.
But your hope is that it will be a tool and not a threat.
Absolutely, and that's the way we're choosing it. We're being proactive. The argument is that if we don't, we're higher education. That's the great thing about it, and you should invest in us for this reason. We are the people that look on the forefront of innovation. We are the inventors, if you will. So we should be on the forefront of understanding then how we're the users and how we can actually make that work for us, but how we can be partners once again with business and industry to make it work well for them.
Kentucky is switching from ACT testing to the SAT. Yes. How is that rolling out?
It's rolling out. It came fairly fast, and we weren't necessarily prepared in the beginning, but I've worked with the College Board, David Coleman and his team. They've come to Kentucky. They worked with me directly. We got them with the presidents and our universities, and we're working hand in hand, and we're moving through it fast. We will be ready to implement it. As you all know, we went to a test optional system several years ago as far as admissions and entrance, and some colleges still use it, but few don't. But SAT will be very important to us to identify how we place students, where they need to be placed, in those classes they need to be placed, how we can use it as a proactive tool, once again, to understand the learning differences and how we can help students, no matter where they're from, to get to the finish line.
Anything else we need to know here in the
yes. I mean, the idea that higher education still matters. When you look at it, and you brought up AI a minute ago, it's going to matter even more. So how can we all work together, once again, business and industry and the legislature, the governor's office, all of us on each of our campuses to do the things we need to do with good policy, but yet have good funding.
Dr. Aaron Thompson, always a pleasure. Appreciate you coming by.
Thank you, sir.
Everybody stay with us on Kentucky Newsmakers. We'll hear from Dale Morgan on his mission to make Kentuckians more financially literate. That's coming up in just a moment. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. Dale Morgan says Kentuckians need to be more financially literate and economically empowered. He runs Foundation 47. He leads mindset initiatives and getting into a better financial position. That's what he works to get Kentuckians toward. Morgan was appointed by the governor to the Kentucky Commission on Small Business Innovation and Advocacy, honored as the 2025 Financial Services Advocate of the Year by the U.S. Small Business Administration. He's a graduate of Henry Clay High School and EKU, and we welcome Dale Morgan to Kentucky Newsmakers. Thanks for coming in.
Bill, thank you for having me.
What do you hope to get across to Kentuckians of all ages when it comes to their relationship to their money?
Bill, like a lot of individuals, I learned about money the hard way. And I made a lot of mistakes and I mismanaged a lot of money. But it became apparent to me that my discipline wasn't the only issue. The issue was my lack of access to financial knowledge, but also the understanding of how those financial systems work. And I can give you an example. I had reached out to a fiduciary to inquire about some investing options. And after we went through those options, he told me that I could get a rate of return of 8%. Mm-hmm. Well, so I signed up for that 8% return, but I started noticing over the long haul that I was not getting 8%. So I reached back out to him, and he began to tell me about the nominal interest rate, which he didn't tell me about before. And the nominal interest rate does not account for inflation. So that 8%, and the inflation rate at that time was 5%. Mm-hmm. So that 8% that I thought I was getting was only going to be 3%.
Ate up your gains.
Yeah. It did.
Well, why do we know so little about money? As people, and I don't want to say that younger people have more of a deficit, but it did used to be taught more, I think,
right.
At the high school level, that
Right.
you got business courses and all of that.
Right, you have business courses and math classes, but there were no specific classes dealing with personal finance,
Right.
particularly when I came out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't take that up for themselves and take the initiative to learn those things. And sometimes, Bill, I think, Sue, some of it's by the design, right? That we're not teaching about personal finance, because the less financially literate you are, the more money that can be made off of you.
Mm-hmm. You have said that teenagers, if they do it right, can start investing and could be millionaires before middle age.
Yes. See, that's the power of compound interest. Now, compound interest is a double-edged sword. It's great when you're receiving it, but not so great when you're paying it. I try to get kids to understand that you don't have to be a sports star or movie star, an athlete. If you start investing money now, particularly in your teenage years, with compound interest, you can be a millionaire in your 40s to going into your 50s.
Do they listen?
Some of them do. But the key is not only listening, but applying the concepts and strategies that I present them with.
Yeah, it sounds like you say you can learn from the mistakes of others.
You can.
Of others.
Of others.
And that's better if it is others, right?
Yes.
Do you have to have an intentional mindset to set yourself up for financial success? I mean, you've said that being positive can go a long way.
Yes. Always positive thinking. And I'll say too, Bill, it starts with your mindset, because you have to make a conscious decision within yourself to say, I'm going to get my personal finances together. I'm not going to get consumed with conspicuous consumption or spending money to impress other people and things of that nature. And understanding your walls in and walls out mentality. Walls in is the things you learn in your household from your parents that maybe influence your financial decision making. Walls out are those things, say, where you're influenced by celebrities or your peers to spend money that maybe you don't have to spend and you don't really need to be spent on certain things.
But it's difficult these days, isn't it? And again, young people see the influencers, they see what's out there, what's possible,
right?
And it's like, well, why am I not there? And they're frustrated, right?
I think too, exactly right. And you said something too, Bill, that made me think something. In society, we have been told that there's a timetable to do certain things. Mm-hmm. When you're 25, you need to accomplish this. When you're 35, you need to accomplish this. And some people, I sit down and I talk with people that say are going into their 40s, and they're not happy. They haven't been doing the things that they need to do financially, and there's a stigma and some embarrassment with that. So they won't even try to get started with their personal finances sometimes.
Yeah, there are many who have very little savings even as they approach retirement.
Yes.
In your presentations, you tell a story about NBA great Dennis Rodman.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Dennis Rodman, to me, obviously, he's arguably one of the best rebounders ever lived. But what sticks out with me is that Dennis Rodman I saw an interview with him one time, and he said, no, I'm not going to give you 30 points. I'm not going to do this or that. But one thing I can do is I can rebound. So he said he honed in on his rebounding skills, and he got so good at it, so much so that he missed like 20 to 30 games one season, and he still led the league in rebounding. And I say take that same mindset towards your personal life. Find out what it is you can do, hone in on those skills, and just go for it.
Know what your game is.
Right, know what your game is, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you adjust when we see things out there like, artificial intelligence is coming? Some are led to believe it will end some careers. How do you plan for AI innovation and use it as a tool for success?
Right. The first thing, Bill, I would say is don't fear it, right? Because when you become in a state of fear, that's going to keep you from progressing or doing the things you need to do, right? And in terms of artificial intelligence, find a way that you can leverage it in your favor or whatnot, and see how you can make. Because I actually use it to see how I can make my presentations better and how things I can do better. So find a way that you can benefit from it and use it and leverage it in your favor.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your presentations. You speak around the region, and you talk to what kinds of groups? Everybody?
My target audience is high school and college age students, but I've taught all across the spectrum. I taught elementary all the way up to 70 years old. And we talk about budgeting, investing, debt management, and things of that nature. But what I'm really keen on, Bill, is that yes, you could have all these textbook concepts and strategies, but you need to apply them. And secondly, one of the things too is that you need to be abreast on those structural aspects of financial literacy. What that means is, say on the federal, local, state, and local levels, those economic policies that will affect your bottom line. Earlier this week, I saw a show when you guys were talking about House Bill 15, and y'all was talking about the changing the age from 16 to 15.
Yeah.
Well, like you all said, if you got a parent and you have a teenager, you need to be looking into how much your premium may go up. But also, he said something else about the liability aspect of it. If your teenager goes out and has a wreck and you get sued, well, you got to. Financial literacy also entails protecting the assets that you do have.
Yeah, that was on the driver's license.
Yes, the driver's license.
That permit at 15.
Right.
And the impact that has on insurance, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
When do you listen to that voice that says you need to pivot to have success? Even if that means a career change or a change in direction in your life.
Bill, when I was coming out of high school, I went to the University of Louisville. I was playing football. And back at that time, you could not tell me that I was not going to go to the NFL. Obviously, I didn't make it, right? So I came home. I had to pivot because life is not over just because that football dream of mine died. I had to figure out something to do. So I just devised a plan. I just started working, and I let nature take its course. And I worked in a manufacturing environment for 12 years before I got my college degree. And getting my college degree for me was one of the best things I ever did because it put me in places and in jobs with individuals that I probably would have never met.
Do you tell young people they need a backup plan if they say the NBA or the NFL is where they're headed?
I tell them to keep their options open, right? Backup plan is good. I tell them to keep their options open, but just know if it doesn't work, do your research to see what are my odds to actually make it to the NBA or NFL. And if it doesn't happen for you, just like it didn't happen for me, it's not the end of the world. You can still have a productive and successful life.
Yeah, and still have that goal.
You can still have that goal,
but
right?
If it doesn't work, you have your backup.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What do you say to those operating businesses about recruiting and retaining a workforce? I mean, this is such a huge issue in Kentucky right now.
Right.
There are more jobs available out there, and there are people to fill them.
Right.
And so these companies really have to value their workforce.
Right. And you said something key right there. You said value their workforce. And one of the things that I do some contract work with companies where I come in and I teach their employees about personal finances. Because when your personal finances are not together, Bill, that affects every aspect of your life. And I can speak from personal experience. I've been on jobs where it was tight, and I knew I may or may not have that money to reach it to get me to that next paycheck. But I'm at work constantly thinking about that, and I can't be productive into the job. So I would say invest in your employees with, say, financial education, give them stock options, anything to help them help them better not only their morale, but also their financial position.
If they can be financially literate, that's one thing less they worry about.
Less they worry about.
And they can do the work.
And like I said, that kept me from focusing on my job. So I speak from experience. Everything that I do is from experience.
Starting a business can be a challenging, even scary, but also very rewarding. So what kind of mindset does that take?
That takes a mindset to understand. I tell individuals to ask yourself, what problem can you solve? What problem can you solve with anybody? And another thing, Bill, is that when I started my business, a business long time ago in Georgetown, Kentucky, I had a pet store. Me and my friend, Andre Hawkins, we went into that business blind and we didn't know what we were doing. And we made a lot of mistakes. But nowadays, there are so much resources out there. Commerce Lexington, who I am the facilitator for their Money Smart program, we take individuals from the napkin phase all the way to running and operating a business and being successful to run their business. So utilize those resources.
Dale Morgan with us today. Thank you so much for coming in. Foundation 47.
Yes, sir.
Folks
yes, sir.
can look that up and
yes,
get more information. Everybody stay with us on Kentucky Newsmakers. We'll be back and wrap up the program in a moment. We do appreciate you being with us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. As the legislative session continues, we'll continue our coverage. You can follow that on our newscasts and on WKYT.com, as well as our streaming programs on WKYT+. Again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you make it a good week ahead.